All right, we're back as we adjust to the online world with a live audience. So once again, I'd like to introduce Brian Skanderbeg, President and CEO of GFG Resources. Brian?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Timmins Expo, and today I'm going to introduce GFG. Hopefully give you a feel for where we're going with the company, a bit of our history as to why we came into Timmins, some deliverables for this year, and maybe a vision for where we think the next Timmins gold mine may be. For those of you that don't know GFG, it's a public company. It's been trading for about 5 years. The origin of the name is Go for Gold or Gift from God. So there's a few different mechanisms there. I'm just going to get my slide going down here. There we go. Just a cautionary statement. I think you guys know I'm a geologist. Sometimes we get carried away and make forward-looking statements. When you think about what we were doing with GFG, we're a management team that's built and operated mines before. Our team operated Clavos Resources in Saskatchewan for the better part of the last 5 years, made a nice discovery, put it in production. We're a good team, found mines, operated mines, and built mines before. When we put GFG together, it was really a thesis on district-scale gold projects and exploring those to find relevant Tier 1 style systems. And I think what you'll see in Timmins is a very formidable land position that we've amassed here. We're being quite aggressive, and we try to do things differently. Everybody says that, but we need to be better. We need to explore more efficiently, and we need to figure out how to find ore bodies under cover. And that's ultimately what we're really focused on with GFG. When we think about our larger scale share structure, we're about a $25 million company. We'd have maybe $2.5, $3 million in the bank, so we're reasonably well financed for this year, 2022. Some good strong shareholders, both within the insiders and on the institutional side. I'll also point out that Alamos is one of our largest shareholders. The team here I mentioned, myself, Mark LePage, Rick Johnson, all formerly with Claude, and then you guys may well know some of our board members, Arnold Klassen and Brian Booth, were both formerly on Lakeshore Gold and some of the founders of that company. I like to start with the big picture of exploration and the challenge we face. This is discovery trends over a 30-year period. It is relevant to why GFG is created and why we're focusing where we're creating, where we're putting our capital to work. Ultimately, that red line is dollars in the ground in the world looking for gold. And ultimately, the yellow bars are how much we're finding. So this shows the trend over 3 decades. And it shows the challenge we have as an industry. And it ultimately is why we formed GFG and focused where we do focus. We believe looking in areas undercover, looking in areas of well-endowed belts and well-endowed systems with infrastructure will yield discovery. And when we put the areas in Timmins that we have under control through this filter, ultimately we feel there's a good probability, whether it's at Penn, whether it's at Doré, whether it's out east at Montclerg or in the Gold Arm project, that we're sitting on very relevant discoveries. And I think this is ultimately why GFG is exploring at Montclerg and using techniques to look through the cover and through this till. A map we're a little more familiar with. This is about 200 kilometers around Timmins. There's a lot of gold in this map. There's about 140 million ounces of gold here. A good history discovery. If we're talking Cote, if we're talking Borden, if we're talking even Timmins West, Thunder Creek, these are systems that were found in the relative recent time frame, and to me they exemplify very relevant scale gold systems found in the Timmins belt, and they exemplify the prospectivity of some of these major structural corridors going out of the main camp. If you want to go look at the Swayze, we believe that's the extension of the Porcupine Dester across the block at Penn. If we want to go out to the east, we believe the Pipestone is highly underexplored, and that's the Gold Arm property. To the west of Doré, or to the west of Cote, is our Doré block. So these are big picture land positions. It's about 800 square kilometers that we control, and I believe next to Newmont, GFG is the largest landholder in the belt here. So we believe in discovery potential here. Our focus in the short term is certainly out at Montclerg, And most of the deck I'm going to be talking to you today is on the exploration programs we focused at Montclerg over the last 6 months, and talking to you about the rationale that were out there and what our thesis is. Some of us are geologists, some are just in the industry here. If you go out east of Timmins and you look at these main breaks, you've got the Porcupine Dester moving along through Nighthawk, Taylor, and off further towards the east into Black Fox. You've got the Pipestone break, the northerly of the two strands. As Dan just talked about up at Go West, take that through Clavos, through Montclerg, and wrap it around out to Croesus. That's the Pipestone. On the big picture, those are the main structural corridors that control this. Over the last 6 months, GFG has executed, I think we're about 6 deals to put together the Gold Arm property. It's about a 30-kilometer corridor. It has encompassed portions of the Pipestone, something we would call the Northern Pipestone, which is a structure that sits about 8 kilometers north of it. And we also come down and touch the Carr Porphyry. So this is an area that's well endowed, infrastructure rich, and we think has great opportunity to yield the next relevant discovery. Montclerg is the area we're focused mostly on. I would like to thank Lionel Bonhomme and Peter Colbert. Those are the group in IEP that we acquired this ground from. They put some of this ground together, did a great job, and we're very happy to have them as shareholders and supporters of our side. This is what we started with, and I think this is really attractive as an opportunity. So when you go digging back through data, much of this 123 holes was drilled prior to 1960. So most of it wasn't sampled in entirety. Most of it was focused on 5 gram plus material, and many of those holes were only sub-100 meter holes. But we looked at the system, and what we saw was about a kilometer scale gold system present north of the Pipestone Break, hosted in Kidd-Monroe volcanic stratigraphy. And we also had the Canamax target, which sits directly on the Pipestone, and that would be the direct geological analog to Clavos. So we have about a 10-kilometer land position here. It straddles the Pipestone Deformation Zone. I'm showing you the historic drilling here, completed mostly in the 40s and 60s, to an extent by IEP and a smaller group called Matamec that was here in the late 90s, no, sorry, in the 2000 timeframe. I'm going to show you a cross-section through there, talk a bit about geology. This is where we started, and I think this showed us what we saw as a good gold system that was highly underexplored. Note there's only one outcrop on this whole property. It sits in the creek that splits the deposit. That's why this deposit was found. 1930s prospecting along that creek outlined an exposure. It's the only outcrop on the property. So that shows the prospectivity yet that is still to be unlocked on this property, I believe. Oh, going the wrong way here. Geologically, it's a cross-section looking to the west. So you've got the Porcupine sediments to the south. You've got the Pipestone Deformation Zone with the Temiskaming Age intrusion emplaced within it. You go through a package of ultramafics and up into Kidd-Monroe volcanic stratigraphy. When we acquired the property, we saw bulk tonnage potential within the Kidd-Monroe felsic volcanics. This would be the yellow unit on here. I'm showing you greater than a gram in orange there. A number of those composites are 30, 40, 50 meters. Some of them are greater than 100 meters within that 1 kilometer corridor that was historically tested in the 40s. Limited drilling, though, where there's been thorough and continuous sampling. There's these footwall splays that come off that. Those are much higher grade. They're hosted in high iron basalts, and we think there's great potential to see these higher grade footwall splays developed, and we're drilling in that environment. And then at depth, there's a handful of holes below about 200 meters, and many of those have hit higher grades, which would show duplicate footwall structures coming off that felsic volcanic package. So there's a lot of different structural environments that we think are prospective within the Montclerg trend. That's the northerly of these two corridors. Moving to the south, that's the Pipestone Break. Limited drilling, pretty widely spaced drilling, but some nice hits, VG-bearing quartz veins up to ½ an ounce. This would be the direct geological analog of Clavos, and we saw good potential along that corridor too. So we're exploring both these corridors. They're about ½ a kilometer apart, and they trend across the 10 kilometers of our land position at Montclerg. When we acquired this in October of last year, we stepped out and initiated a drill program very quickly, and we drilled about 3,500 meters before the end of the year. Some of those results were amongst the best ever drilled on the property. I'll flag 4.8 grams over 26 meters. There was also a high-grade interval down that hole that could have been 4.6 over 36 meters. So there is some bulk tonnage high-grade potential in that mafic volcanic stratigraphy. There's also bulk tonnage in the rhyolites. So when we're mapping and domaining these zones, we're seeing 1 to 2 gram material in the felsic volcanics. We're seeing higher grade footwall splays in the mafic volcanic stratigraphy. And this is one section that we've tested of a kilometer corridor. So we see very encouraging economic hits at about 100 meters depth underneath cover, and we're successfully stepping out now. So this is what we published in Q1 of this year. It was drilled last fall, so some very impressive hits. And I show you the cross sections there to show you how we would model these modestly north dipping bulk tonnage zones stacked underneath about 15 meters of till. Geologically, you're coming out of the felsic volcanic hanging wall into these iron-rich basalts in the footwall. Some of the high grades, some of those detailed pictures are almost an ounce per ton. You can certainly come by our core shack and have a look at these. You're seeing intense sulfidation, pyrite or pyrite, quartz carbonate veining, and you're seeing these developed on structures both within the regional east-west fabric, but also in oblique orientations as well. This was a very impressive hit, just less than 5 grams over 26 meters, and thoroughly mineralized. As you can see, there's very little of this stuff that wouldn't meet an open pit cutoff. When you think about the bigger picture as well, so we started last fall in an area we thought was about 500 meters strike length. Coming into Q1 of this year, we've now stepped out to the east and to the west and to the south. So we drilled 17 holes between February and April. That was about 4,500 meter drill program. Those are at the lab, and we expect to publish them soon. I'm going to show you some visuals of each of those target areas. And what I can say is we've demonstrated and hit the same mineralization stepping out 400 to 500 meters in both directions. Specifically in the MC Central area, so this is where we had the high-grade hits. I'm showing you examples from both the felsic volcanic vein mineralization at the top and the mafic volcanic carb-altered, sort of gray carb-altered mafic volcanic stratigraphy. These are pending assays, but we do expect them to grade similar to what we published last year. The rock looks the same. So this is an example of some of the textures and vein intervals that we see in the core. We call it the MC Central panel. It's about a 500 meter strike length here. We stepped west, and geology changes modestly. It picks up a more porphyry, felsic porphyry, as opposed to a felsic volcanic. That porphyry is actually mineralized. I'll show you some pictures here. Upper right, those are intensely quartz-veined felsic porphyries, sulfidized in places. Some of them are unrecognizable as a porphyry, and we're quite encouraged by visuals from what we've seen stepping out west of the creek as well. So this was assays pending at the lab. I think one of the most interesting things we've seen is stepping east. The bottom right map shows you some of the mag backdrop. This is the mag low setting. The plan map on the bottom right shows stepping out 500 meters, and no drilling completed in this area. And what we show you is some visuals from here where we've intersected quartz vein intercepts, quartz tourmaline veining, heavy sulfidation, pyritic basalts, and what could be Temiskaming porphyries as well out in that environment. This was a step-out hole 500 meters to the east, and assays are pending on it. There's no drilling historically past this. So we feel very much that the system can grow into very relevant scale shortly. When we tested the other corridor, this is stepping down into Canamax. This is the Clavos analogy. We put 2 holes under here testing between 250 and 350 vertical. Interesting veining, lots of Temiskaming porphyries in here, fuchsitic altered ultramafics with sulfides. These are all at the lab pending. We put 2 holes through this environment as well. So when you stand back and think about what we've done, GFG put together 30 kilometers of belt 6 months ago. We've already drilled 5,000 meters on it last fall, and we've drilled another 4 to 5,000 meters in Q1. We plan to take a regional approach to the block out east. This is a much greener, as I would call it, land position moving east, more immature from an exploration philosophy perspective. So we'll go back, do sonic drilling, do structural interpretations and targeting over the greater land position that we've built. And we'll advance that in parallel with the Montclerg property. So a very, very compelling large-scale land position with economic hits developed on it. I'm not going to speak too much. This is a small property we acquired called the Aljo Mine. It sits in the immediate east end of our property, just north of the Croesus Mine environment. Some very nice multi-ounce hits over 1, 2, 3 feet that would have been drilled back in the 90s. No follow-up since that time. That's Montclerg. Penn is where we came and started with in Timmins. This is a 60-kilometer belt that we hold west of Timmins. Very encouraging results here. I think it's still earlier stage exploration, and we would definitely rank it behind Montclerg in terms of our priorities. When we think about our big picture strategy this year in Timmins, it's drilling 10,000 meters. We have a vision to turn this into a resource within 2 years. And I think we have a number of high probability holes at the lab right now, which are very encouraging from what we've logged and comparable to what we would have drilled last year. When we think of the regional program, we certainly have a lot of work to do on the big picture, going out and generating targets moving to the east side of the land position. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about our other asset in Wyoming because this is a Timmins show. GFG has a partner in Wyoming. They're trying to bring in situ mining technology to gold. And we are a shareholder and an asset level holder in partnership with this company called Group 11 Technologies. It's the what if portion of our business, which is what if we could mine gold without ever mining it? You actually dissolve it in the ground and bring it up in solution. And that's what we're trying to develop with our partnership in the US. I'll skip through all these slides and get to the final one so I can keep us on time. And when we think about GFG, I think we're a credible exploration team. We found mines before. We're well financed. We are amongst the largest landholders in the Timmins belt, and we believe this is a belt that will yield greenfield discoveries moving forward, and it's why we came here. I think it's a great team. I welcome anybody to stop by the booth to look at our core, talk to us some more, and I do thank you for listening to the story today. Thanks very much. And if there's any questions, happy to answer. Somewhere else you have to sit and wait for another 5 minutes as well. So somebody can come up with a question for me. No questions. I'll talk a little more on the in situ mining side if nobody's got a question. So ultimately, I believe in situ mining's never been done because we're not going to put cyanide in the ground. But what our partners have is a solution that dissolves gold without using cyanide. And ultimately, if you can move this solution through the rock and dissolve the gold, I think you can see in situ mining for gold just like you can for copper and uranium. And it's a pretty exciting technology. It's a private US company called Group 11 Technologies. And I even think there's applicability to pure hard rock mines as you'd find up here. What if we didn't have to use cyanide in our processing? What if we didn't have to destroy it at the end of our milling circuit through a cyanide destruction circuit for 10 or 15 or $20 million? I think there's great advancements being made on the metallurgical side, and if we can look at non-cyanide based extractions, it very much opens up a new realm for gold deposits. Anyways, that's not the focus of GFG, but I think it's a really interesting angle to think about in the context of gold mining and a camp like this. Thank you very much. Thanks very much.
There we go. All right, well, thank you, Brian. From experience, I think everyone in the room knows how strong his team of geologists and support staff are. For those of you out there in cyberspace, I think it's well worth your time to take a look at this project.